On December 9th, 2025, two things happened. First, my sophomore album, Soar Beyond Farther Than You Know, released on all platforms everywhere. But shortly after, something in my mind clicked. Something that I believe is the answer to a question that I've asked myself for many years. Hi, my name is Kadence Grunder. Last year, I made a video detailing my plans for 2025, and I want to do that again in a hopefully much more formatted structure for 2026. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Let's get after it. Before we get into future plans, I gotta recap on a couple things. While I not only released my next album, there was a lot happening for me throughout all of 2025. One of my biggest feats was that I played 18 shows in 2024, but for this year, I played 51 different shows throughout the year. This came in the form of acoustic gigs, bar shows with my bands, original shows, showcases, hosting open mics, as well as making guest appearances for other musicians, such as Jared Farrell and Reagan Blue. Needless to say, I have been creatively well-nourished throughout this year, and I have a feeling that things are only going to get better throughout 2026. Now, if that wasn't enough, there are a few other events that came into my life that are definitely worth mentioning. I started going back to school only in March. I picked up a part-time job as the audio-video team member at Unity Renaissance Spiritual Life Center Church. And I became a licensed ham radio technician with the FCC. Speaking of which, if you're in the 757 area and you're also a fellow ham, hi, my name is Kadence, KR4HOU. I'm normally monitoring the Virginia Beach Town Center repeater on both 2 meter and 77 meter. That's a 146.895 megahertz frequency. So come say hi if you have some time. As you can tell, things that basically exploded for me throughout all of 2025, and I could not be more thankful, not just for the grit I have to do this with only a limited amount of caffeine, but also for the friends, family, and loved ones that have come out to see my shows, maybe left a nice comment over social media for my stuff. Thank you so very much for believing in me and showing support to this craziness of a person, however you can. My favorite part of playing shows is being able to look out into a crowd and seeing a bunch of familiar faces, and every single time, like, that brings me the biggest joy, is seeing so many people like come out to support me like that. So thank you so very much for that. Now that we got all that stuff out of the way, let's talk about all the things to come. One important thing to note is that I currently have 1 year of school left. For some context, I'm currently using my GI Bill, which essentially means that school to me is like a part-time job until I get my degree. What this also means is that I don't really know what my income situation is going to look like come 2027. Now, I know we haven't even talked about plans for 2026, but I feel like that's a key point for me to mention before I continue on with everything else. A few months ago, I mentioned how I was going to be stepping away from playing solo shows for a little while. This wasn't because I hated doing solo shows by any means, but I definitely needed to start to shift my energy into a different direction. In 2024, that was when I started to learn how to play guitar, and I've crawled my way into the local music scene. And in 2025, that's when I started to walk a bit. I started to play a lot more shows, and I really started to get to know the ins and outs of the music industry. In 2026, I want to sprint beyond the 757 and start to grow and enhance my own community for the people that love my music, which means focusing on areas where I get to build personal connections with fans. And I know it's a very weird word for me to kind of say, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. In 2026, I absolutely intend to make a return to busking. I didn't do any busking throughout the summer of 2025, and I think that was my biggest shortcoming throughout my music career throughout last year, and that's something that I definitely want to start bringing back for next year, because I generally start to feel like a Virginia Beach musician whenever I did that. That was always a fun time for me. I'm also going to get into the habit of playing more original music at open mics, showcases, and maybe even dedicate a few sets of my own music at my own shows. I released a lot of music over the past few years that I believe has gone very much overlooked by a lot of people. I believe I've improved and grown a lot as a musician and a singer, so by being able to bring back some of my older music to the present time with the skills and knowledge that I've learned now, I think that would be a very awesome thing for me to start doing. Speaking of which, I normally try to keep music plans quiet, but I'm starting the plotting phase of making remakes and remastered versions of some of my older music. And that is all I will say for now. I've written and recorded and produced so much of my heart into a story that I believe in, so if I can't trust myself to play my own music out in public, how can I trust anybody to really listen to my own music in the first place? A small side comment that's relevant here, I'm finally proud to announce that I have my very own website finally at cadencegrunder.com. You can see my discography, my show schedule, you can see articles, other videos I've tagged from my YouTube channel, and more excitedly, you can do digital purchases and you can order physical CDs for my latest album, Soar Beyond Farther Than You Know. I actually finally got a box here of all whole bunch of CDs for Soar Beyond with the whole on cover art and everything. It's got the track listing. This is like really cool to see that I have my own official CDs from like my own music. So, you know, I'm really proud about this. Getting back to shows, in July, I started a house show series called Live from the VB Garden. And that was where I put a bunch of musicians in my backyard where they also brought their own friends and family and had them perform their own music. To this date, that is still probably the most collaborative project I've ever done. Definitely being inspired by other artists in the area such as Ray West and as well as the Tapped In music series. For the most part, I've always had a great turnout and every artist leads not just with a split cover, but a growing fan base. And once the weather gets warmer, I will absolutely be bringing it back throughout all of 2026. So if you're an artist in the area that wants to start playing in more showcases, or if you're an artist that has already played in this series and wants to go up for another time around, definitely hit me up. We can definitely go ahead and make something happen. I definitely want to start inviting more and more artists throughout the area. Okay, getting back to being a little bit more selfish, I also plan to get back into making more videos, such as this one. Growing up, I was always a big YouTube kid that kind of dreamed of making videos like my favorite content creators. So while I'm trying to showcase my own music, I kind of figured that doing video making would be a great way to help promote myself. It won't be a crazy amount like of videos throughout the year. I won't try to make like a whole series or anything like that. But I love the idea of making detailed, informed videos like this one gradually throughout the year, talking about a variety of things. It won't always be centered around music. I already have a few topics come to mind, but you can definitely just go ahead and keep a lookout for it. Now, these are some big goals that I have, and you're probably wondering, where will I find the time to do all of this? Well, it all goes back to my original warning, the fact that I won't be doing many solo shows this year. In fact, aside from playing gigs with my band, The Hot Messes, or maybe even being featured with other artists, I probably won't be playing many official paid gigs this year. I've already proved to myself this past year that if I really want to, I could definitely put my nose to the ground and play cover gig after cover gig day in and day out. This year is about focusing not just on myself, but about the art and the community that I've built around myself. Will I still play shows throughout the year? Of course, it's definitely going to happen. For my folks all the way in New Jersey, I'm already trying to plan a string of shows throughout the course of a week or two so that none of y'all have to wait a whole 6 months to actually see me again. But I won't really be making that so much of a priority compared to some of the other projects that I have in mind throughout the year. So we covered the before and we covered the after, but there's something else that I wanted to talk about. In early 2020, before you know what happened, I found myself wearing Type 3s, alone in a stall, trying to conceal the sounds of my cries and curses, distraught from the life I was experiencing and constantly questioning if this is what I really wanted in life. I took out my notebook, which was filled with all sorts of random things I don't really care to remember anymore. I found a blank page and I wrote myself a few questions. And at the very top, the number one question that always stuck out was, how much are you willing to sacrifice to achieve greatness? Since then, I have fought tooth and nail for the rest of my time in the Navy, afterwards in the civilian sector, and finally as an artist to be the very best of my craft. This is going to be the one time where I try not to be humble, but I believe I've done an incredible job compared to like where I've started. Most musicians in the area have been playing for 5, 10, and 15 years before they really start to get their footing in things. And I've only just started playing guitar in early 2023, and I've hit the ground sprinting to be a recognized name in the area. And it has completely destroyed me in the process, if I'm being honest. On one hand, I've become friends with dozens of other incredible musicians in the area and creating music that somehow people seem to enjoy, and I felt completely alive performing for others. On the other hand, I spent months callousing my fingers to get to a fraction of where I want to be, spent long nights trying to figure out the mechanics of an RC5 looper pedal to get an effect that only I know would really kind of care to notice. And I've broken so much from the isolated feeling that I gave myself of giving up time away from friends and family so I can chase an extra hour of practice or a random open mic for some strangers. I remember one specific night, I drove all the way to Newport News to play in 2 separate open mics, and then drove all the way down to the Dam Neck area in Pungo section to play a 3rd open mic in one evening. Throughout the past year, I took part in 2 separate romantic relationships, and both of them have ended because I did not have enough time to dedicate for either of them. My album, Soar Beyond Farther Than You Know, was built around that very question that I pondered for years. When it released, I truly thought about the themes of the album that I revealed to the public, and I believe I have found the answer. The amount I'm willing to sacrifice for myself to achieve greatness is the amount that it takes until I am no longer Cadence. I've talked about how much school and work and music has affected my life, but there are other smaller changes that I made with my life that might be confusing at first, but will make more sense as time goes on. I started collecting CDs and using an MP3 player for my music and canceling Spotify because, fuck them. I started biking and taking the bus as part of my daily commutes. I started using social media less and less, both on the posting side and also on the consuming side. And like I mentioned before, I started focusing on my own music and the community around me. Now, that is a very blanket statement to really describe all the changes that has been going on throughout my life, and I don't really have enough time to cover that in this video. I'm talking about a variety of things. It won't always be centered around music. I have a few topics come to mind, but you can definitely just go ahead and keep a lookout for it. Anyways, I've covered a whole lot in this video talking about my plans for 2026, so that is where I'll end it for now. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble and yap about all sorts of random things. Most of my future announcements will be on my websites. Again, that's cadencegrunder.com. You can go access it not just from a computer, but also from your phone. So be sure to check out my website whenever you get the chance. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the new year. Bye now. Which means focusing on areas where I have to get the... I'm a spiritual, lyrical, miracle individual. By growing and enhancing my own community for the people that are fuck. God damn, this is hard. I'm my own musician now. I'm such a professional. And we got the mixtapes. I recorded this once, but you already know that. But the audio sounded like shit, so I get to go ahead and do it again. It's weird because I feel like I have 3 different places I can look at. I can look at the camera, I can look at the OBS preview, or I can look at my notes. The creative tism is coming out.